Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Excerpts from the Talmud, Part 2. We're getting someplace. Last night was 1. So, I'm going to talk now about why we're not playing the piano. So that while people are coming in, are there anybody?
Yeah, they're coming.
They're coming, okay. Is that the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, was so traumatic and so life-changing for the Jewish people that it's a time of mourning where many different forms of mourning take place, one of which is not to have music. So, in lieu of my not playing music, I will talk. And I'll talk about the actual destruction. And we're talking from the Talmud, and what the Talmud, its version of how the destruction went, and the time just before it. Just for what it was worth, I was in Tel Aviv all day today, and rushed back, just got back a few minutes ago, so I'm still on Highway 1 right now. So I will be slowing down. So yesterday we talked about that there were two people, Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, and there was a mix-up, and Bar Kamsa was insulted, went to the Caesar and ratted on the Jewish people, and Caesar came to the conclusion that the Jewish people were trying to rebel against him, and so he sent their legions there. And that's where we're up to now. So, he sent Nero. Now, Nero was famous for playing his violin while Rome burned. Actually, there's a joke. If anyone has ever studied Latin, which we did actually, I remember a few years in grade 9 and 10, I studied Latin. And there are like 3 different conjugations, and there's 5 declinations. It was very, very complicated language. And the joke was that why did Rome burn down because of the fire? Is because by the time they could figure out how to say call the fire department and use the proper words, that's what it's not that funny of a joke, but it's something to say to give a smile. I even had a smile out of the camera girl. Anyway.
Maybe because it was a joke I never heard before.
And that's not a joke. So Nero was sent. Now, actually, in the Talmud, it really doesn't, it's not very unclear. Is it that Nero sent somebody or Nero was sent by somebody to Israel, Judea, to take care of this rebellion? And he came to the conclusion after speaking to a young man who was telling him what he was presently learning. He came to the conclusion that, well, he's going to get mighty punished for doing this. So he better just decide to quit. So he ran away, and he became Jewish. He converted to becoming Jewish, Nero. Anyway, so there were 3 very wealthy people living in Jerusalem at the time. I'm not going through the names. What the special reasons for the names there's a lot of background material going on that I'm going over. But they made a deal that they had between them, they had tons, probably literally tons of wheat and barley, oil, salt, wine, and wood. Enough to last for 21 years. Because the Romans had a siege on. No one can come in and no one can go out. And they had enough food to last them for 21 years. Now, there was a group of people, pretty hot-headed young men. They had that back then too. And some hot-headed young men, their group was called the Bar Yonim. The Bar Yonim, according to Rashi, one of the commentaries, these were empty people who just wanted a good fight. So when the rabbi suggested to the Bar Yonim that maybe we should just go out and make peace with the Romans. Something, give them something, we'll take something. And the Bar Yomin said, no, we're not going to allow you to do that. And so the Bar Yomin said, well, maybe we can make war. And the rabbi said, no, you can't do that because that's not going to be successful. So the Bar Yonim did what any normal, level-headed person would do. They set fire to all the flour, barley, and wood, and consequently made a famine in Jerusalem. Now there's a lady named Martha who was very wealthy. This is only a side point. She's a very wealthy woman. Very interesting how this is going to work. She was a very wealthy woman. I have some notes, so I'm going to read it off the notes a little bit. Very wealthy woman, and she asked her servant in the midst of the famine to go out and buy some bread made from fine flour. He came back and said, they don't have any bread from fine flour. They ran out. But they did have bread of white bread. She goes, okay, go get me some white bread. So he goes out, comes back and says, they didn't have any white bread either. They just ran out. But they do have a bread from coarse flour. So she says, okay, go get me some bread with coarse flour. And then he came back and said, well, they ran out of that too. What did they have? They had barley flour. Okay, can you get me something with barley flour? He came back a few minutes later, and guess what he said?
No more barley flour.
No more barley flour. And probably people for 2,000 years have asked, why didn't she just say, well, get me anything? Well, so she was so distraught that she ran out in the street screaming. And she's a very, very fine woman, very dignified, and she wasn't even wearing shoes, and she stepped in some animal dung, and it so grossed her out that she had a heart attack and died. Yeah. There's another opinion that she said she was eating Rabbi Tzadok's figs. Now, what's the story with Rabbi Tzadok? Rabbi Tzadok was fasting for 40 days, didn't eat anything from sundown to sundown, and he broke his fast on dried figs that he squeezed the juice out of them. And he said that if he would ever eat anything, he was so skinny that you could see the food going down from the outside. Well, he threw away the figs after he squeezed them out, and they said that she ate the dried figs and died from that. So if anyone asks you, how did Martha die? There are two opinions. Okay. Now, there was a person, his name was Abba Sikra. Now we're coming back to the story. Abba Sikra was the nephew of a very big rabbi, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And he was the nephew of him. And Abba Sikra happened to be the leader of the Bar Yonim. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai sent him a message to, in secret, come to see him. So at night he came, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, is there any way you can end this? Because people are going to starve to death. And this is going to sound like something from 2021. Abba Sikra said, the people in my group, if I decide to change anything that goes against them, they'll kill me. So he said that there's only one hope, that we have to come up with some ruse to get you out of here. So what they did, what Abba Sikra suggested to his uncle, make a rumor that you're sick. And people will come to visit you while you're lying in bed, and then take something really smelly and put it next to you. And people will think that you died and your body is rotting and smelling. And so since you died, they're going to have to put you in a box and carry you out. But it's a known fact that a live person weighs more than a dead person. Why it weighs less than a dead person. So they had Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's students carry him out so that they were privy to the fact that he wasn't really dead. They get to the gate. Now the gates had a guard on the outside, the Romans, And they had guards on the inside, the Baryonim, not allowing anyone to go out. So they said, well, what's in this box? He goes, oh, it's the body of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So they said, well, let's see if he's really dead. So they took spears and they were going to spear it. And they said, no, don't do that. Because the Romans will say that we sent spears into our rabbi's body. They said, okay, well, let's just shake the body up. Shake it and see if we shake it hard enough, he'll go, ah! And they said, don't do that because the Romans will say that you're shaking the rabbi while he's dead. So they said, all right, let him go. And he went out and he visited the new emperor, whose name I didn't mention, was Vespasian. And Vespasian greeted him, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to him, Shalom Aleichem Melech, Shalom Aleichem Melech, peace unto you, King, peace unto you, King. So Vespasian said to him, you are liable to the death penalty for two reasons. Number one, I'm not a king, so calling me a king is making fun of me. And number two, if I really am a king in your eyes, how come you didn't come and visit me until now? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, well, the reason why I say you're a king is because it says that Jerusalem will fall into the hands of a king. And so we know it's going to be falling, so you must be the king. And why didn't I come and visit you? The Baryonim wouldn't let me. So Vespasian said, well, let me ask you a question. If you had a jar of honey and you had a snake wrapped around it, wouldn't you just smash the jar of honey and then the snake would go away? So that was what we would suggest to you. If you want to get rid of the Baryonim, you just break down the walls and we Romans will kindly come in and kick the Baryonim out, which may be one of the dumbest suggestions in the history of dumb suggestions. So that was that. Well, very quickly thereafter, a messenger came, a messenger from Rome. Caesar has died, and the Senate has voted that you should be his replacement. You are now the king. So that answered that first question. And now, he, let's see, I just turned a page. So he was in the middle of getting dressed, and he had only one shoe on when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai came in. So he tried to put his other shoe on. It wouldn't go on his foot. So he says to the rabbi, like, do you have any idea why my shoe won't go on? He goes, yes, there's a special pasuk, a sentence that says, basically, if you hear good news, your body will swell up a little bit. And that's why your shoe doesn't go on. So what am I going to do? He says, well, there's also a sentence, a pasuk that says, if you see something really unpleasant, your body will shrivel up a little bit. So have someone come into the room, someone that you really, really don't like. And they did that, and his foot went down. And he put the other shoe on. He says, listen, I'm going to Rome now for my new job, and I'm going to give you some wishes. What would you like me to do for you before I leave? So he said, okay, I would like 3 wishes. Number 1, I would like to have the city of Yavna and all its sages saved. Number 2, I want the family of Rabbi Gamliel saved, and I'll explain in a second who Rabbi Gamliel was. And number 3, I want doctors to heal Rabbi Tzadok, who's been fasting for 40 days. And so wishes were granted. And the reason why he wanted Rabbi Gamliel's family to be saved is because it says when the Messiah comes, the Messiah is going to be a descendant of King David. And Rabbi Gamliel was a descendant of King David. So he didn't want that lineage to end. And that is basically the story for today. We have a new general coming tomorrow. He'll be here in about 23 hours. His name is Titus, and he was mean, and he was really not nice, and he was so full of himself. He was a really, truly disgusting person. And you'll hear about it tomorrow night. I'll be glad to fill you in. 9 o'clock tomorrow night in Israel, and let's see, what would that be in
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. So wait, this is program number 2, was at 2:30. Number 3 will be at 2. Okay, got it.
Now you're going to be very confused.
I'm really confused. Come at 2 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you'll be okay. Thank you for listening again, and have a wonderful evening or a wonderful day.